We were giving a dry run of the presentation to a friend of mine here at the conference, and for some reason I spit out that no one likes a proctologist with cold hands. And what we're really looking for is you've got to be friendly, because it's not a pleasant experience to have a penetration test done or a proctology exam. And the more unpleasant you make it, the worse the results will be taken. And as a consumer, the more unpleasant you make it for yourself and other departments, the people affected by this that really could give a rat's ass about security, the more that they're going to have a tendency to dismiss the findings or distance themselves from the findings. But if they're part of the team, if this is a team effort and you're on the same team, those folks over there are the bad guys. They're all part of the good guys, and they're going to be fighting with you rather than against you. Because if you set this up as an adversarial thing, you're going to lose in terms of security. You know, all this said, at the end of the day, some people just don't give a shit. We realize that, and you're going to run into those people.
But the thing is, for them, I think we kind of got it down already, right?
Yeah, that, open season.
We kind of got that figured out, right? So we don't have to talk too much about that one.
So we told you that if you would stick around for a lot of hell and some of our drinking, that we'd give you a surprise at the end. We have beer, you don't. It's part of the speaker privilege. So I want to be clear here. The prize here is very, very on target for this presentation, because it's actually a really old flaw, but it's still low day. And I want to mention that the vendor here has actually been very great with us. I mean, they worked with us very diligently. There's already a fix in place, a workaround, and they are going to be releasing a patch shortly, and there will be an advisory posted on our website later. Now, when Steve found this, I just thought it was on target. And so we're certainly not picking on this vendor. It just happens that this happened to be the most on-target finding we had. And I think it's important to realize that this can really happen to anyone, and it does, hundreds of times a day. We have an entire forensics team that is employed because this happens all the time. And what's important is that we stop pointing fingers here and just note that old stuff keeps coming back up. So with that, I'll turn it over to Steve.
So this is the finding. This is going out today. It's an advisory. It's EMC Celerra. This is a file server network attached storage device. This really, like Charles said, it really fits in with the talk because it's an old one, right? It's a new one. It's an O-Day. You're the first people to see this. But it's old stuff in a lot of ways. We're calling it an O-Day, but it's an O-Day in K-Day clothes, if you will, or K-Day and O-Day clothes, excuse me.
Remember K-Day, by the way. We want everyone using that phrase.
I'm going to infect you with our buzzwords. So there's basically what happens if you're familiar with NFS. It's an old protocol. Made reference to it a couple times. There's export of the /file system, factory-defined list of authorized IPs. So what you do is there's a command called show mount. And if you use show mount, it'll show you all the NFS exports. There's /, and then what you've got is a list of IPs that it actually allows to talk to it. Now, if you look at those IPs are, if you look them up, they belong to EMC. That was kind of a strange thing. I was on a test when I found this, and I was looking at those IPs, and I said, what are those? And I was working with another tester of mine, and he looked them up, and he's like, those belong to EMC. So what's really happening here is inside, the developers are using these IPs to actually talk between the different devices, the different EMC, to make their cluster, the Celerras, talk together using this format. So the thing is, if you can spoof that address, then you can get in. Like I said, this is old stuff, right? This isn't all that exciting. Maybe it's interesting because it's stuff you still see in the field today. But if you look at the age of this type of attack, it's really not that new. All I did here was I was in the same L2 network. I had to be, to do this specific thing here, I had to be in the same layer 2 network as the Celerra. But what I did is I changed, this is on Linux, I used ifconfig to add an alias to my internet, to my interface, my Ethernet interface. And then I did a route add, so I had like I wanted to make sure that when I talked to the Celerra that I used that IP to talk to it. So you do an IP route add, the Celerra IP, and then you tell it what interface to go off on, and you tell it to use your other IP address. Then you just mount it, right? You make a directory mount it. So that's, like I say, that's going to be going out today. Just want to reiterate with Charles, we sent this into EMC Security Alert. They responded very quickly. They have workarounds. If you look at the advisory on Trustwave.com, they have workarounds that describe how to fix this, how to work around it. This does affect all versions of Celerra.
It's so rare to find a vendor that's proactive and really cares. So if you happen to use them, you've chosen a great vendor. One thing also to mention here, we were discussing with Steve when we were able to do a talk like this. I said, yeah, we can do a talk like this, but we have to have at least some reference to ODay in the talk that isn't running it down, so we had to include that. Now, I was talking to a friend of mine about this talk, and he's, I kind of ran down these grand ideas for what we were going to do, and really it was mainly an excuse to give a meta talk with some reference to ODay in it, but he said, well, you've got to have a conclusion at the end. He said, well, what does this whole thing mean? And so I came up with this. We get attackers to start using more ODay. If we can do that, we can all just come to Black Hat 365 days a year, drink to our heart's content, and everything's good, and we can just spend all our time worrying about ODay, and we don't have to worry about K-days. Alternatively, we can just change our tactics. And I think probably from a security perspective, it makes a bit more sense to change our tactics. If the global security report is any indication, I think it's warranted. We have a couple thank yous we'd like to throw out. Tactical Flex, they were really great. They gave us a free copy of their software. If you haven't checked it out, check it out. It's really slick. We're actually looking at it and, even before, and Steve actually gave me a call to tell me just how cool it was, and so then I checked it out, and I really fell in love with it. It's a wonderful piece of software. They should be very proud. Rodrigo, who's actually on staff here, who works for Steve, helped us out a lot. EMC, of course, we want to give them a lot of credit, and they didn't fight us at all on this, and they were actually very supportive, and they worked with us to approve a workaround that's also posted on the site. Now, Pabst Brewing Company, I want to make clear that that's just from him. I would not drink that shit if my life depended on it, but Shiner, probably I should have thrown a thank you to. And Manicorn, of course the unicorn, or angry Manicorn, as the case may be. If you have a strong stomach, I strongly urge you to go look at some of his other pictures. That was the most work appropriate picture I could find. I'm probably going to hear from HR shortly because it wasn't all that work appropriate, but in the grand scheme of things, that's very minimalistic in terms of inappropriateness for Manicorn. I wouldn't do it right after lunch or dinner, but definitely check that out. Thank you. Any questions?
Any questions? Yes, in the back. So the question, I think, let me reiterate, is
the answer?
that the question is whether or not we're finding ways to work around the kind of the apathy that we run into in the industry. Is that right?
And cause of apathy, I would even say.
What's the cause of it? And if we can find the cause, maybe we can help to solve it, right?
So it varies. One of the things is that, going back to sort of the whole nerd analogy, if you get the crap beaten out of you enough, you eventually get tired of it and stop fighting back. And did you just? Sorry. Shit. If you get the crap beaten out of you enough, eventually you stop fighting back. And I think that it's a couple of things. One, there's no clear, consistent message from the security community. If the same info security magazine that might publish something that says pen testers suck one week talks about how pen testers are great the next, how one technology sucks, another technology is great. And a lot of that is because you have marketing departments writing a lot of security news. And combine that with the fact that you don't have a lot of press coverage of company A staved off a huge internet attack on Friday. When's the last time you saw press coverage because somebody was really, really secure? Yeah. It's pretty depressing when everything you read about is how, CSO A really failed and, company B should be ashamed of themselves because they exposed all their client data. So it's really sort of a really depressing press stream, I would think.
But to that point, I think as far as combating it, I mean the times that I've had the best success with that and actually gotten people excited about security, it's really when you show them what they're doing right. I mean, if you catch them doing something right, if you catch them protecting something and it causes you to fail in something you thought might work, tell them. Right? Like I say, there's no such thing as no finding test. No finding test suggests you didn't do anything. I know that a lot of times pen testers or security consultants or whoever, you're auditing. Even if you're an auditor, you're looking at certain security controls and show them what they're doing right. Show them that this is good. This part is really, really good. I can tell you put some time into this and it pays off. Right?
For the record, never say, hey, it can't get any worse.
That's right.
Sure, go ahead. This is David Byrne that actually works for me and gave the talk with me that I ran from to get here to give this talk. David, we're going to mic you up because Steve wants to get off stage. David, we have to mic you up so they get it on recording.
Okay. I give a slightly more cynical response, I think, than Charles and Steve, but in my experience, the organizations that have the best security, it usually comes from the top, where you have a CIO or someone in a high-level position that recognizes the importance of risk management. And apathy, is a problem that you see in a lot of jobs, not just security. It's usually because of a lack of accountability and consequences for your job duties. So it could be also because the job duties just aren't well documented. But in the end, you really need to have somebody in a position of authority that says, we're going to be secure, we're going to put measures in place to confirm that we're secure, and this is your job. If you don't do your job, there are going to be consequences for it. Sometimes you can educate executives or other high-ranking managers about the need for that. Sometimes it's not possible. Unfortunately, that's just the reality of it. But in the end, something coming from the top down is going to be the most effective.
I don't know if you can tell, but David's really into retribution.
Any other questions?
Right over there.
So here, okay. Oh, he's just saying I have no time left.
Yeah. Right over there.
How do you deal with the fact that very often your solution breaks something? I mean, if you give this a password, it breaks something.
So the question is, how do you deal with situations where you're trying to fix something, but it actually breaks something else?
Okay, I'm going to give two answers here. First, I'm going to give the answer that is most correct, but can't be given. And that is, it breaks something a hell of a lot less than being compromised and ending up on the New York Times front page. Fair enough? Okay, now the other answer. At some point, you're going to have to re-architect. It's better to do it now so that you're only re-architecting because you want to avoid a compromise than because you were just compromised and holy shit, are we still in business? And when you re-architect so that it works now, you will probably be reimbursed for that re-architecture versus if you do it after compromise, who knows there's a lot of factors at play. Again, are we still in business? Do we have money? That kind of thing.
So this guy just made a really elaborate banner to some kind of program to say you're out of time, because apparently we're not getting the message. So thank you so much for coming. I appreciate it. Come up afterwards. You want to talk some more.